welcome to this episode of Experts on Purpose. The special guest we have today is Katie Gootenberg. Katie is the founder of Digitally Enhanced Marketing, and she brings nearly a decade of cross-channel experience to her clients. What started by working for and advising Fortune 250 companies has since evolved into a boutique marketing agency. By simplifying their approach, digitally enhanced marketing is able to help their clients and students achieve serious results without the headache of trying to do everything at once. In this interview, let's find out how Katie took her expertise and passion and converted that into a super successful digital marketing agency. Hey, Katie, welcome to Experts on Purpose.
Thank you, Jyotsna. It's such a pleasure to be here.
My pleasure, Katie, because ever since I came on your show, I've been meaning to reconnect with you. And I thought this is a perfect opportunity because why should I gain all the knowledge from you selfishly myself? Let my audience also benefit from it.
That is so kind. Thank you so much for saying that.
Absolutely. So I'm curious to know, Katie, I've seen entrepreneurs struggle hard for a decade to reach the level of success that you have reached. But you started in your business just in 2019, and in the last 3 years, you've had massive success. So, what actually triggered you to, really put this together as a business at Digitally Enhanced?
It's so funny to hear it from other people's perspective because obviously when you're living it, you're just kind of like, this is hard and am I making the right decision? So sometimes when other people mirror back to you, like, no, you're doing well, like you're successful, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, thanks. Like I needed to hear that. But going back to the beginning, full disclosure, I never really had any intention to start my own business. I never thought that I had an entrepreneurial spirit. I really loved the fact that I would show up somewhere and just do what was asked of me and had a steady paycheck and benefits and could go home and sleep at night. But everywhere I worked, this is going to sound maybe egotistical of me, but everywhere I worked, I would have really meaningful conversations with either my boss or my boss's boss or like leaders from the executive team about
Mhm.
where we could be improving, what wasn't working. And the conversations were always really good. And I felt really good leaving them of like, oh, they heard me. They get it. They're going to make these changes. And then nothing ever changed. And I started to get more and more frustrated of like, I don't
Mhm.
understand. Like, why aren't things moving forward? You said you get it. You said these
Yeah.
were great ideas. You like I showed you the business case of what it would do,
Mm.
whether it's like an ROI or a retention thing. What's happening here? And so I was at the time working at an agency in Chicago, and it's like exactly what you think of when you think of working at an agency. We were just running around like chickens with our heads cut off, working so hard, working insane hours. And I was starting to have panic attacks. Like I never felt, and I wasn't the only one. Like people were having panic attacks in meetings. I was getting yelled at in front of clients. And I sometimes tell people this and they're like, no, it can't be that bad. And even people at the agency who had a different experience than me were like, it wasn't that bad, but like, it was that bad. I was miserable. I was calling my dad in the middle of the night crying to him because I was like, I just can't even catch my breath. And I was literally saving up my money so I could just leave without even having another job. And I was like, I'll figure this out later. I just need to get out of here. And everything just kind of came to a head at once. Like I had been threatening to quit. Finally, they took me seriously and they're like, all right, we'll see you later. Um, my dad passed away like relatively unexpectedly. And just like within 2 weeks, my entire world fell apart. So then it turned into like, I just need a break and I'm gonna lick my wounds and figure it out. And I was actually trying to get another traditional job and nothing was working out. And finally, I was volunteering at a place that was a co-working space. So I was working alongside of women, predominantly entrepreneurs, small business owners. And I was finally like, maybe I could do this. I don't know. We'll see. That's literally how it started. And
Mhm.
I next month or 2 months will be 4 years. And it kind of started with a like, I don't know, I guess I'll see if I can do this while I try to find a quote unquote real job.
Okay, amazing. Sometimes you just follow your heart without a big plan, but then your heart leads the way, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
So
could
how did
not
you
agree more.
decide to, set up an agency like this? I'm sure this is very different from the agencies you worked in, right? You didn't want to be
Yeah.
like them. So what were some of the things that you decide should be different about your company?
It's so funny because, like, it is that is exactly what has, like, kind of become my why, because I
Mm,
left and I created on paper something very similar, much smaller, but something very similar to where I was working and where I was miserable. But through that, for me, I really decided right then and there. I knew that it would be a while till I would have a
mhm,
team and I could bring people on, but I knew that everything that we were going to be doing as an agency, whether it was just me at the beginning or now me and my team, was going to be centered around treating humans like humans, which sounds so
mm,
silly. And sometimes you're like, why does that need to be brought into business?
mm,
But people can feel that. Your clients can feel that. It comes across in your marketing, it comes across with every interaction. And then my ultimate goal is, yeah, I wanna run or I wanna own, a multi seven-figure, maybe going on eight-figure business, and, like, that might sound a little egotistical, but the deeper meaning behind it is I recognize that I cannot do that on my own. It takes a village to create a successful
mm,
business like that, and I am so excited that step by step, I'm able to bring women into this company,
mhm.
pay them really well, treat them really well, and create a culture that I would have wanted to work for.
Beautiful. I have seen that picture of your team, these happy women smiling on your website. And I think that speaks for your amazing culture at work.
Thank you, thank you. I will be fully transparent. Those are also friends. But yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. It's very intentional. The women who work on my team are diverse in
Mhm,
age and where they're from and where they live. Um, I wanted to create something of meaning and something of value that really
mm.
cherished people as they were and for what they brought to the table based off their own unique experiences and expertise.
Awesome. So other than having the goal of, treating humans like humans, be it your client or your team member, you also mentioned that you wanted to build a seven-figure business, which is going to become an eight-figure business. And
Mhm,
that's such a fantastic mindset to have, Katie, because most employees, when they quit their job, they try to be a freelancer, right? And they get
mhm.
stuck in that freelancer mode for years without having the aspiration of building a solid business. But you, straight off the bat, you really wanted to create a, a strong business. So how did you develop that mindset, or what actually helped you to think big right from the very start?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I've always had big plans, like, it sounds so silly. My dad was the coolest man in the whole wide world, like, literally lived a fantastical life where sometimes even as I tell the stories of what he did, I'm like, "People wouldn't believe that." But
Mhm.
from that, I was like, "I wanna be that person." Like, I wanna be the person who's like, "Yo, I'm friends with Katie Gootenberg," like, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
the cool
and, like,
person.
yeah, and so I feel like I always knew that I wanted to build something that was really exciting and really
Mm,
meaningful to me. Um, Obviously, money does help to create fantastical experiences, to, put yourself in new places to meet and network with cool people, but I will say it's because of starting my own business that I realized that while I had always been good with money, I
mm,
had some serious money mindset, like, issues, serious money blocks. It sent me on this real journey of coming to terms with all the limiting beliefs that I actually had and that I, like, believed I could never actually even make six figures, um, and start to unpack those, and eventually, once I could, invest in resources and coaches to help me work through it. So it was almost the disconnect of like, "Oh, I wanna be quote unquote rich and successful, but I don't feel like I can, so what needs to happen in order for that to actually manifest?" And I will say, like, I talk about money a lot, I talk about how I'm building this very lofty business, but I do wanna be clear that, like, for me, money is the byproduct. Like,
mm,
at the center of it, I wanna build something that gives me freedom to jump on a plane or when the time comes, like, take the afternoon off to just chill with my kids, I want to build something that is able to support me so that I don't have to stress about
Yeah,
basic needs or anything like that. I just know that in the 3D world, like that means we need money to do that.
absolutely. Yeah. Right. So how did you work on yourself would be my next question. You knew that, you were not always like that, right? But now
Mhm,
you're a very different person. So what was the transformational journey like? Did you have a
mhm.
mentor or did you attend some programs? What really helped you create that shift?
I'm gonna sound like such a hippie if this is new. I don't know like where your audience is on these journeys, but for anyone who is just hearing about all this stuff, they're gonna be like, "Oh, this girl's maybe crazy." But it actually started, oh shoot, I was gonna say 5 years ago, but I've been in Chicago for 5 years, so probably like 7, 8 years ago.
Mm,
Um, when my dad got really sick, and like I didn't believe it, but people were like, "No, we almost lost him then." And at the time, super randomly, I had a personal trainer, like a gym personal trainer, and she would just check in and I'd be like, "I'm fine. I'm fine. Like, it's cool. He's fine."
mm,
And she's like, "I don't this feels weird. Like, I don't think you should really be fine." And she kind of set me on the path for shadow work and inner child work, which I had never heard before. But it really started to help me look at, well, how like what is my outlook on life? How does my mindset help create things that I'm going through or put me in situations repeatedly. So I feel like I might have had a little bit of a leg up on being really curious about how the mind works. And so through natural progression was just finding different people and teachers who had podcasts on mindset and inner child work and shadow work, and would join memberships or um, kind of like lower priced, like lower ticket items. And then finally, when the time came, I just realized I'm the type of person who needs a coach, who needs
mm.
individualized attention, and someone who's really going to call me out on stuff, and who will also be there when I'm in the moment being like, I don't know how to like get out of this mental loop. So, a few people that I really love and trust. One is my money mindset coach. Her name is Helena Grace Donald.
Mhm.
I work with her. I actually had a session with her before this. She is incredible. And then another woman who I love, and you can binge both of their content for free through their podcast, is Ruby Lee. So
Mhm.
I know I know Ruby's podcast is Rituals, spelled rich like RICH. It's so funny. I can't remember Helena's podcast name off the top of my head because now that I'm working with her, I'm like, I don't need the podcast. I'm paying you to like hang out with me. But
Yeah.
I'm sure I could get that for you if anyone's interested.
Thank you for sharing this, Katie, because a lot of people feel that to become successful, they need to gather all these skills. They need to constantly keep, knowing what's happening in the industry and all of that. Yes, all that is important, but
Mhm.
the inner work that entrepreneurs put themselves through, that makes the massive shift because you're not the same person, right? You may have the same skills, but you're a different person, and that brings a different level of success. So thank you for sharing that authentically.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And I mean, that's literally why I named my podcast EntrepreneurShift, because that was something that no one can actually prepare you for,
Mm.
of just the soul reckoning that this brings you on, and how at the end of the day, it does spit you out as an entirely new person.
So true. So when you initially started your agency, did you have that question in your mind whether you should call it by your name, like katiegutenberg.com, or should you have it as a different company name? Because this is one question a lot of first-time entrepreneurs go through.
I actually love this question. No one's ever asked me it. But like, I love that you're asking me this because this was something else that now I can so clearly see this was a limiting belief that I had. So I intentionally did not want my name tied to my agency because I actually didn't have the faith in myself that this would ever, I thought this was going to be something where I'll like freelance while I'm searching for a job and I can fly under the radar and make some money. And I was talking to my best friend. I didn't tell her this. I was talking to my best friend. I was like, I just need a name for the LLC. Um, want it to be kind of tongue in cheek. So I literally chose digitally enhanced because it sounded kind of silly to me. Like it made sense because it was digital marketing, but in my mind, it was like it made me think of airbrushed images, and I was like, no one will associate me with that. And I didn't have Katie Gutenberg anywhere on the site. So I probably wouldn't recommend that to anyone else because for SEO purposes, it's really, I find it easier, depending on what your goal is, obviously, but I find it easier to have more crossover between your name, like
Mhm.
your actual name, and your business. I've had to work really hard to get digitally enhanced noticed by Google
Mhm.
because it was completely new to the world.
Right. So would you probably then say that people should equally use their name and their business name?
Yeah, I do think there's value. I think what it ultimately comes down to is, does your name already have weight or credit? Like,
Mm,
especially among the people that you're trying to reach, do they already know you?
mm,
Because if so, there's strong value to your name. And I would highly recommend that you do showcase that. If you're working through it like I was and you aren't yet ready for the world to see what you're working on and you're scared of people calling you out for being a fake, like it's okay to hide behind it for a little bit. There will come a time when you will gladly shout it from the rooftop that, like, I am Katie Gutenberg, owner, founder of digitally enhanced marketing, and
yeah.
start to like bring those worlds back together.
Nice. This is so amazing because what most entrepreneurs who have a different name tell me is that, you know what, from the very start, I knew that 10 years later, I'm going to sell this company, which is why I don't have it in my name.
Mm,
But you have a
mhm.
different take on this. You were not super confident about how this would go. And that's why you just wanted to play safe. And I'm so glad things have worked out really well for you. And now everybody knows you as well as the brand.
Yeah, yeah, but you know what? That's such a good point, and like something that I just hadn't think thought of because my ultimate goal is not a sellout,
Mm,
or a buyout. Sorry, I should say sellout sounds bad. Um, if that is your goal, that makes complete sense. I've now just come to the point where I'm like, it's funny because now I'm doing a lot of hard work to actually build up, like both the Katie Gutenberg and the digitally enhanced brand because yeah, I am finally at a point where I'm comfortable with my name and face being the actual face of the business. But again, it took going on 4 years of work to get here, like
yeah.
inner work, not just like working on the business, but like Katie being comfortable with this.
Sure. So, how was it for you to initially attract your clients, and what do you do differently now to get your clients to the agency?
So I quickly mentioned that like I was volunteering at
Mm,
a women's co-working space. And so I basically built a brand within a brand for them for free. And it wasn't until we were getting towards the end and I was like, what is happening here? Like I'm putting in the hours, like more than a full-time job. And they found the budget to give me $5,000. And I was grateful for it. I really was. Like there's no shame in that. But it's funny because now I'm like,
mm,
$5,000 for all that work. Like that's a joke. Um, love you. I love you guys if you guys are listening to this episode and I appreciate the $5,000. Um, so that they became my first client. And then because I was
mm,
sitting there working alongside other small business owners and entrepreneurs, some of the women who used the space became my first clients. So it very much was word of mouth and them just literally knowing me and seeing that I am good at what I do. Um, that was great. That was great to get me off the ground.
yeah.
But just like every other piece of the entrepreneurial journey, I so much has evolved since then and so much has become refined. So at first it was, if you will pay me, I will take you. And if
Mm,
there's like a chance that I might be able to help you, I'll figure it out and I'll stay up all night researching how to make sure that this gets done in a way that makes sense.
mm,
That's not really a sustainable strategy. So as the years continued, I started to really niche down in my services, in who I was trying to work with. So it became women owned businesses in the health, wellness, and empowerment space. And it was very easy for people to see, are they like that or no?
mhm,
And decide if they want to work with me. It's since evolved again. I now have realized that I want to work with more mid-sized companies rather than small businesses.
mm,
Um, but yeah, it so becoming clear on who I was targeting and who I could really help and understanding them really deeply so that my marketing spoke directly to them. Like despite all the evolutions, that's been the through line. I'd say just the evolutions have been what does Katie want to do? Who does
Mm.
Katie and her team want to work with? But the formula for creating or marketing that stands out in a crowd has stayed the same.
Right. So when you're working with mid-sized companies, I'm really actually happy that you talked about how your clientele evolves. Initially, every entrepreneur is happy to work with anybody who pays, but then over a
Hmm.
period of time, you realize who are your soul clients whom you really enjoy working with. And you're at a
Hmm.
place where you have the liberty to choose whom you want to work with. So now
Hmm.
when you work with mid-sized companies, Katie, they probably already have a marketing department or they've worked with marketing agencies before. So what additional value does your company bring?
It's so interesting because as I work with more mature businesses with larger budgets, I kind of thought that I knew the new way that I'd have to sell to them, but it's entirely different like than I expected. So at the beginning, when I was working with people, it was literally moms who their business success was whether or not their child had a college fund, which is a lot of
Mm,
pressure to take on for both of us. And so a lot of it was grounded in getting the work done at the lowest cost possible, which is what drove me insane. Um, and like why I needed to switch gears a little bit when working with companies who have either a team or someone with a marketing title who I can partner with or
yeah.
have worked with marketing agencies in the past, it's become a different conversation. It's now how can I save you guys time? How
Mm,
can I save you from hiring a marketing team? So if you're paying me 10 grand a month, that might be $120,000 a year. But if you were going to hire 5 people, even if they're lower level, that's still less expensive. So ultimately, I'm saving you money. It is conversation about the experience in their industry, in their niche, and how you can't really buy that. So for them, it really the conversation centers around efficiencies, and that's
mm,
been so eye-opening for me because I was still coming from this place of having to prove myself and why I'm a good buy for
mm.
someone rather than this is really like an investment and an expansion of your business.
Right. That's such a nice way to look at it, right? Rather than hiring five people who are half as efficient as an agency can be. So,
Mhm.
what one common theme I see in your work, Katie, is you always talk about simplifying things. Most people talk
Mhm.
about, that you need to be in 10 different platforms, you need to do 10 different things in order to get leads for your business. But you talk about, scaling back in order to scale your business. So, could you talk a little bit about that approach?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. So it I would say that this is predominantly for a smaller business or a solopreneur, someone who is trying to either get that initial traction or start to scale their business. Because when you have a team, yeah, obviously you can do everything. It's so much easier. But at the beginning, when we're starting our business and it's just you, we get bombarded with messaging all the time of like, oh, you just need to be on this channel, or you just need to do this one thing, or you just need to like get your email in check. And we go around collecting all of this like pretty useful content and tips from quote unquote experts who I could guarantee you that I can't guarantee you, but I would assume that they've had success and or at least I hope if they're ethical, they've had success, they've helped people have success through their methodology. But at the end of the day, you now have this laundry list of things that you have to do that becomes super overwhelming. In addition to that, without the one-on-one support and actually understanding who you are, who you're trying to attract, what makes you special, your service special, it just becomes a cookie cutter solution,
Mm,
which again doesn't be or isn't that impactful. So between the lack of knowledge and really grounding it in who you are and who you're trying to reach, and also this now laundry list, you start doing everything but like not as great. So
yeah.
my approach and what I try to help people understand is that it's so much better to do one thing really well. So what I help my clients, especially students in my course, it's called Client Connection Formula.
Mm,
And it's not a fancy fancy name because I'm really trying to help you understand how do you connect with your
Mhm.
client or your
Yeah.
prospective client. And it really comes down to understanding where are they, what's
Mhm.
on their mind, and then how can you help them. And if you literally answer those questions on the primary channel that they're going to find information, learn more, just understand what's going on in the world or in their industry, and you do that really well, it might take a minute because good marketing requires consistency,
Mhm.
but as you do that and you repeat that and you just really continue to focus in on doing that one channel really well and always grounding everything in what that ideal client needs to hear from you, you will see so much greater results than half-assing it on 15 channels.
Yeah. And that's so reassuring, right? That you don't have to do so many things and yet you can move to the next level of success. So you spoke
Yeah.
about your course here. So this is something that I have been thinking about for a while, Katie, because I also moved from low paying clients to high ticket offers now. And now that I work with more successful entrepreneurs, I feel that I'm abandoning all the people who still want to learn from me but cannot afford my done for you
Mhm.
services. So you have a mix of both the things. You have your concierge services to help your mid-sized companies and you have your courses. So how do you
Yeah.
balance the two, and did the course come about later?
It's so funny, and I'm so appreciative, and it makes sense that like people find each other. Like I love that you said I hate it, like it's sad, but I love that you said you kind of feel like you're abandoning the people. Um the course, so I had this weird thing happen where my business wasn't really a business until the pandemic hit. And at the pandemic, like everyone realized, like, oh, shoot, we can't really go out there. We can't really talk to people in person. We're literally staying home. Um, and people realized the need for digital marketing. So that's when my business started to take off. So I was really grateful for that, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, but you also start to like take a look at what's happening in the world with people losing their jobs, people taking leaps of faith, like the quote unquote great resignation, where I was just kind of like very appreciative, very grateful for the business that I'm building, but also what is an accessible entry point into that for
Mm.
people who can't afford my one-on-one concierge services. And that's where the formula came, or the course came to be. Um, so it was kind of built up in tandem. I will say that I had every intention to grow the course way bigger than I did last year, but then the business picked up and it's just kind of been on autopilot since then. I do
Mhm.
have intentions to really pick it back up this year and really try to remind the world that it exists, that it's super beneficial. It's kind of a steal.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's happening in tandem. Full disclosure, like I'm really grateful that I'm at a place where my team can help
Mm.
tackle that. Like it's no longer just me. Um, but yeah, technically it's happening in tandem, but it's happening in tandem with support from some really awesome women.
Fantastic. So you never had the doubt that oh my God, if I have this course, it will cannibalize my agency services, and the people who could sign up for my year-long service will end up buying the course, and that will affect your sales. Did you ever had that worry?
I did because at the time, like when I first started, I was still working with smaller businesses where
Mm.
my clients really could have, should have been students. So they were a direct, like it was a one-to-one thing. Now that I have moved and evolved into who I'm working with, people, like I said, like we're having different conversations about efficiencies, about how I'm saving them from hiring a team. They don't they will pay not any amount, but they are intentionally paying money so that they don't
Mhm.
have to do something. So anyone who's a client now really wouldn't be coming in through the core store.
Yeah.
um Obviously my one-on-one clients are getting my full attention, full support.
Mm.
um and it's like it's a different level of hand holding and availability. But yeah, people who are coming in through the course, like I'm still available for you. We do monthly coaching calls. And there isn't as much crossover. I mean, in an ideal world,
Mm.
I would love if everyone started with the course at a few $100s, built insanely successful businesses, and then eventually we're like, you know what, we want to work with you. Like we want you to
Mm.
be our agency of record. that's what I did for people like Helena, like my money mindset coach. I went in through
Mm,
her free door,
uh-huh.
really like fell in love with her methodology, her principles, and now I'm paying her a lot of money to like work one-on-one
Yeah.
with me and deal directly with my BS. So I kind of see it as like, what are those rings that people are trying to achieve on their own business journey? And how can the course maybe be that first step to help
Yeah.
them build the confidence and get them to that next level, whatever the next level looks like for them?
Hmm. This is such a nice way to look at it. If maybe a few people grow their businesses using what they've learned and then approach you for the concierge services, it's great. But even if that
Yeah.
doesn't happen, these two could grow together as two
Mhm.
separate verticals of your business, and there is nothing wrong with that, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, I was going to say exactly that. So I'm glad that you kind of like put the neat little pin in it of like, if they never come back and work with me, that is fine. Like, I hope that
Mm,
they got everything out of my course. I
yeah.
hope they're moving on and they're doing incredible things with their business. But yeah, like ultimately, I want just the course alone to be a six figure or multi six figure component of the business. Like, at the end of the day, like I said, one of the things that I'm really working towards when I think about a seven figure business is the
Mhm.
freedom that comes with it. The thing that I really love about the course component of it is that it's relatively passive income. So I think it's, if people just want to be in the course, learn what they learn and be on their merry
Mm.
way and really get support from it, have at it. Like high fives on the way out.
Amazing. So, some of our listeners, Katie, could be mid sized entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
And the usual mindset that people have is a marketing agency is for running Facebook ads. So, for
Yeah.
those people, could you just tell a little bit about what else does your company do for them in terms of supporting them in the marketing?
Yeah, so we do Facebook ads. I will say, and like Google ads as well, but I will say, especially for Facebook and therefore Instagram, there has been so much changing in that world that
Mm,
I'm trying to bow out a little bit because I feel like you just like really have to be super in it in order to keep up with all the changes. Um, so a lot of what we do is we oftentimes, especially for mid-sized companies, we start with the initial business and marketing strategy. So really
mm,
helping them to identify everything that we were just talking about. Who is your target audience? Or for larger companies, it ends up being target audiences.
mm,
So, who are these segments?
mhm,
Where are they? And we roadmap a streamlined marketing program for them. From
mhm,
there, they can either pick it up and run with it, but oftentimes it turns out they need support and they want support. So, oftentimes it turns into execution. So whether that is rebuilding a website so that it has better user experience and it's
mm,
actually optimized for SEO. It is content creation, whether that be on the website through blog posts or social media or email programs. And then it's also this dissemination of the content. So that's where the ads could come in, or an email program, or um, like SEM. So Google ads, all that stuff. And then one of my favorite parts, as nerdy as it sounds, is a lot of clients actually, well, not a lot, but some clients will hire us just for looking at their data and figuring out where they can optimize. So
yeah.
I would say those are like the four pillars of it. Um, it is kind of a one-stop shop, which is nice, but it makes my elevator pitch not as succinct.
That's fine. And your typical client would work with you for a period of how many months?
So the it's funny because it used to be like we'll start on the 3 month pilot and then we'll kind of keep going. A lot of my all of my programs like start on 3 months to make sure everyone's feeling good.
Mm,
Oftentimes, if we're starting with the foundation and shoring up the foundation, that's about how long it takes anyway. Um, but then the vast majority of them end up signing longer term contracts with me, whether that be for 6 or 12 months, which I think is great. I mean, obviously, if you want to just have a check in, make sure that you're either on the right path or getting to the right path, and then you have a team who can handle it. More power to you. I will help train the team. I'll make sure they're good to go. But
mm,
like I said, a lot of the clients now are just kind of like, it's you and your team, or I'm hiring a team and you are way more cost effective, so we choose you. So I kind of act as like
yeah.
outside CMO for a lot of these clients, which I love.
I like the outside CMO title.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Instead of outside counsel, it's outside CMO.
Yeah. So, Katie, what would be your final word of advice to all those experts out there who are probably either in a job which they hate now, or
Mhm.
they've become a freelancer already, but they are just hesitant to really own their skills and put it together in the form of a business? What would you tell them?
I mean, I think the first thing that anyone has to do, and this can be really scary, is but like it's figure out what do you actually want? Whether and it could be I just want to be a freelancer and I want to
Yeah.
work for someone and I want to just know that I have these steady clients. That is great. It can also be really scary because you might say, I want to be a multi seven figure business owner who is on TEDx stages every other month. And that's scary too. Regardless, there's going to be some reckoning that comes with whatever your ultimate deep down goal is. But once you figure out what that is for you, I would say the best thing you can do is just kind of see what comes up, whether it's beliefs that you can't do it or why you over
Mm.
anyone else, work on those. And then just, you have to be your biggest cheerleader. I was not someone I to this day, I'm not like someone with the greatest self-esteem. It's something I'm still working on. But despite all that, there's just this belief of like, you're smart, you can do this,
Yeah.
you'll figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, you'll find someone with the answer. And just in trying to remember that, it ends up being what's the next step? Like it but yeah, it just comes down to once you figure out your why, it's having the belief and working on and continually reminding yourself that you are smart, you are capable, you are competent, you can do this. And
Mm.
it's just one foot in front of the other. And those little micro steps that ultimately you're like, oh, shoot, I just did something really big.
Right. Thank you so much for that word of advice to our audience. So, where can people find more about you, Katie?
So I would say the best, if you're interested in my services, the agency services, and how the two streams kind of come together, you can go to the website, which is digitalenhanced.co, not .com. Um, I also, if you like this conversation and you like my thoughts on entrepreneurShift and the inner stuff that comes up, I would
Mhm.
recommend checking out my podcast, which is called EntrepreneurShift. And you can find that on any podcast listener. And you can also hear Jyotsna's um, interview that we had. And yeah, on social media, on Instagram, it's digitally.enhanced.marketing. And now I'm trying to be cool and build up a TikTok. So you can find me
Oh,
at digitally.enhanced.mktg. It's like I broke the rule of thumb. You're supposed to like have the same handle across every platform, but it was too many characters on TikTok.
amazing. Thank you so much, Katie. We'll have all the links right below in the show notes. And thank you once again for coming on Experts on Purpose.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a pleasure.